Project Eidolon, Obsidian-pattern Armour Breakdown. Greetings. My name is Synact the Fate Twister, and I am the creator of the Warhammer Homebrew faction, Spectre Khanate. Today I hope to cover the intricacies of the most common pattern of armour utilised by the novel cast Spectre Khanate, the Obsidian pattern. While many of the technologies within this armor are classified, as in, I don't know how to explain the technology, I do hope that you find this interesting. While this will not cover the more distinctive patterns of the armor, such as Vanguard pattern used by infiltration teams, sub-patterns such as the Wraith sub-pattern used in assault units will be commented on. Obsidian pattern was one of the many patterns of the Novelcast's combat armors, and represents the ongoing development of a long line of upgrades over an original design, which has mostly been lost to time. Its immediate predecessor, the Shade pattern, still sees some level of use, primarily in the Engerd remnants, many independent provinces, and a number of Khanate mercenary warbands. Obsidian pattern's most prevalent upgrades over Shade pattern include its next-generation energy protection system, miniaturized and more capable sensor suites, more armor-based utility systems, improved fine motor control systems, and a new armor composition for only a slight increase in production costs. After its introduction and immediate deployment to multiple theaters of war, it gained a reputation for being highly reliable, favored by many Noveller for its greater performance and ease of use. After its widespread deployment, other patterns of armor saw significant modernization, like Dauntless pattern, or complete replacement, as was the case with Infinity pattern. One component of Obsidian pattern which saw comparatively little refinement compared to Shade pattern was its antimatter power core, with the only changes beyond miniaturization and ease of production being a higher efficiency and greater service life. Relative to its predecessor, Shade pattern, and non-combat suits utilized by both the Novel cast and other casts, Obsidian pattern is visibly upscaled, but not to the same extent as Dauntless or Infinity armor. At a height of 190 centimeters, or 6 foot 3 inches, Obsidian armor does stand taller than the average human, and with a chest measurement of 109 centimeters, or 43 inches, puts them at a strong but not bulky build. Being humanoid in shape, the armor narrows at the waist to 84 centimeters or 33 inches. While the armor does not truly include any sort of muscles, the exaggerated size over the 180 centimeter tall Shade pattern does provide a more intimidating appearance, with the broader shoulder plates emphasizing this. Despite its greater size, it has a comparatively light weight of approximately 81 kilograms or 179 pounds, including the control pod and life support, although this increases drastically depending on carried equipment and loadout. Like most of the Khanate equipment, Obsidian pattern armor's power core utilizes an adaptation of antimatter catalyzed QED vacuum extraction. Without disclosing the specifics unique to the armor's power core, this method of energy production consists of using a Varbian accelerator to synthesize anti-lithium in first stage interface to allow it to complete annihilation. Energy released from this is then directed into real space, where it is used in the manipulation of Casimir plates in order to harness zero-point energy found in the quantum electrodynamic vacuum. Once set in motion by jump-starting the Varbian accelerator from an external source, this method of power production will occur at an invariable pace for as long as the mechanism remains intact and the Varbian accelerator still has power in it, or it is manually disabled by a disconnector. While this process is not 100% efficient, as it is incapable of perpetual motion, it only needs to be refueled by replacing the Varbian accelerator every 1,000 years or so, which will largely exceed the service life of the armor itself. While this is not a new concept to the Zaster cast, the key difference between the core of Obsidian and Shade pattern is a more extensive array of Casimir plates and easier maintenance of the core itself. As with most patterns of environmental suit used by the Spectre Khanate, the Obsidian armor's primary power core is located in the front center of the chest between the peripheral and external armor plating. This is to ensure that if any overheat occurs in the core, it does not cause any damage to the internal control surfaces and life support of the armor and pilot. Like all of the Novell-class armor patterns, an upward venting blowout panel is installed to ensure any detonation of the power core is directed away from these internal components. A second power core is located in the lower back, with a rear-facing blowout panel, with this power core being functionally identical to the main one. Like most armors, Obsidian-pattern uses advanced composite plating with several layers of protection. The exact composition of the armor remains classified. However, what is made available is that it consists of a zentrinium alloy with a neutronium weave. While Shade Pattern also utilized zentrinium alloy, although with a different exact composition, neutronium has only recently been introduced into the forging of armor plating. Zentrinium consists of 26 individual elements and compounds, but the most prominent of these is zentronium, a metal with a very low density, only slightly higher than that of aluminium. Yet for an element so easily attainable within the Spectre Khanate, it offers immense resistance to both deformation and heat, with a melting point beyond any metal discovered by other species. Despite its low density, it can easily be compressed through gravitic compression to allow for its use in projectiles in a much denser state. While many of the other elements found within zentrinium remain classified, what is known is that they only enhance zentronium's protective properties. Neutronium is a material consisting purely of neutrons and is only able to be created under laboratory conditions. While pure neutronium would be impenetrable, its density is beyond scale, and as such it has to be woven into the zentrinium alloy. Despite this, it still drastically increases the density of the alloy by over a third, despite its incredibly small prevalence. However, this combination of materials allows for significant protection even when only a very thin layer of zentrinium alloy is used. The entirety of Obsidian-pattern's epidermal plate is made of this zentrinium alloy, with double or triple layering of plates occurring over many areas, such as the torso, head, and shoulders. The control pod within the center of the torso is protected by a second layer of plating, this time a much higher concentration of neutronium and in greater thickness. This is to ensure even a penetrating hit is less likely to also penetrate the control pod and incapacitate the pilot or vital control surfaces. With the exception of space for venting towards blown-up panels, both the primary and secondary power cores also have a thin zentrinium alloy to reduce the risk of damage from spalling or shrapnel. While these layers of plating offer significant protection, a dermic layer of crystal gel lining functions as both protection against energy weapons and to catch spalling. The composition of this crystal remains classified, but what is known is that unlike most other materials, increased temperatures cause the crystal to harden, allowing it to absorb a kinetic impact or deflect further energy. The main vulnerability of this crystal is it takes a long time to return to its gel state, meaning that it cannot absorb several consecutive penetrating hits with the same effectiveness. Most of the armor has a layer of this gel beneath the epidermal plating, with the only exceptions being limb extremities and the head. The gel also serves as thermal lining to maintain internal temperature in all climates. Beneath the gel are a composite of various ceramics, plastics, and other protective layers designed to further impair penetrators or directed energy weapons. Like almost all of its recent predecessors, Obsidian-pattern armor is highly articular, with all exposed surfaces of the armor covered by armored plate without inhibiting movement even in various positions. For example, the armpit would be expected to be a weakness. It offers identical protection to the rest of the armor. The plates are designed to move and slide over each other at joints, ensuring that a surface is never without armoring. The black exterior is not an added finish and is instead the natural appearance of zentronium. But a common misconception is the lit markings of the armor are used to represent the province of the novella are weak points with conventional lights used. This is not the case. Instead, one of various compounds can be used in the formation of zentrinium alloy, can be used to make the armor luminescent, with further modification performed to give the distinctive color of the represented province, such as the purple of the Vandal province or the cyan of the Colding province. A minority of provinces, most well known being the Loimal province, have applied similar modifications to the Zentronium in order to produce a grey or silver colour for the armour instead of the conventional black. While this does not always impair the functional characteristics of the alloy, some adjustments do have adverse effects on the protection offered by the plating, and as such, it is against protocol to make such changes. In order to maximize aerodynamics, Obsidian-pattern armor has a generally smoothened profile compared to many other humanoid armors. This also grants a more sleek and graceful appearance, a harsh contrast with many other species. An extension to this principle is the wraith pattern of sub-armor, used by jump pack formations. Like all armors used by the Novell cast, Obsidian-pattern armor utilizes advanced types of energy protection systems, referred to as EPS. Generally referred to as force fields or energy shielding. These systems are designed to intercept or redirect incoming projectiles and directed energy blasts away from the armor. In the case of Obsidian-pattern armor, two main types of EPS are used: temporal field projectors and gravitic deflectors. The most commonly used form of these is the temporal field projector. Hundreds of nodes line the inside of the armor, situated between the epidermal plating and the dermal crystal gel, with these nodes linked to a central battery within the torso. Temporal physics is one of the most advanced fields of science even to the Spectre Khanate, and as such is not well understood outside specialists in the Zaster cast, and is largely classified as to how it works to intercept incoming attacks. What has been publicized is the nodes contained within the armor contain highly sensitive proximity sensors, which can detect all manner of incoming attacks, varying from a sword slash to a kinetic weapon to an energy beam. Regardless of the type of attack, the node and other nodes which also detected the attack will emit a disruptive temporal field in the path of the attack. This process is able to function immediately, and as such, even beams of energy can be reacted to in time. Once subjected to these temporal fields, the flow of time for the attack is drastically impacted, resulting in attacks being affected by various other factors at a significantly accelerated or decelerated rate, resulting in attacks being deflected, dissipated, or destroyed due to the rapid change in forces applied to them. While able to intercept almost any physical attack, these nodes do consume a large amount of power to do so, and if unchecked, could overload the power cores. In order to prevent this, the nodes are linked to a battery with an artificially limited power reserve. This ensures the shield simply runs out of power and has to recharge, as opposed to overloading the power cores, although this creates a weakness in that the field is unable to stop certain attacks. However, the reserve of the battery is comparatively small compared to the total amount of the power core, and as such, it recharges incredibly quickly, able to replenish its reserves in several seconds. The second type of EPS are gravitic deflectors. These are passive gravitic fields which react similarly to magnetic poles. When a projectile enters the field, gravitic repulsion causes the projectile to be redirected. The main vulnerability of gravitic deflectors is they do not work against energy weapons. A combination of gravitic deflectors and temporal field projectors allows incoming projectiles to be affected by both the temporal distortions and gravitic repulsion at the same time, greatly amplifying the forces experienced by the projectile and in many cases causing it to break apart. Supporting the frame of the armor is a reinforced metal skeleton with gravitic dampeners. While the structure of the armor utilizes Zentronium alloy in the same way as epidermal plating, the exact composition is a simplified alloy and lacks the dense neutronium weave. Due to the control pod only taking up a small component in the chest cavity, the skeleton does not need to be built around internal components. Instead, most subsystems are built around the skeleton. A greater emphasis is placed on the support structure found in the legs, as they need to support the full weight of the armor and any equipment carried. While Zentronium alloy is able to do so even under movement, gravitic dampeners are attached to all major joints in order to increase the longevity of these support structures. An important distinction between Obsidian and Shade Pattern is the simplified disassembly process of the armor, with a number of molecular-electronically activated locks able to be disengaged by touch rather than mechanically, although still with significant security protocols to prevent this occurring in the field of battle. The major benefit for this ability is for another Nivelle to do this in the field quickly for fast repairs or extraction of the pilot. The movement of the armor is provided by a complex assortment of molecular-tronic gravitic-assisted mechanical actuators, with a characteristic low hum of grav nodes energizing with every movement. As the movement systems are bound to a humanoid structure, they are able to generate an impressive amount of power for their size. While the motors do have a governor to keep the movements controlled and to prevent hyperextension, even under this governor, the armor exerts a physical strength of superhuman levels. Many of the motors rely on a planetary gear system assisted by gravitic nodes asserting gravitic fields upon the central gear. A planetary gear system is one where one or more centrally pivoting sun gears attach to one limb, with multiple planet gears rotating around the sun gear in a manner similar to planets orbiting a star. These planet gears then drive a ring gear surrounding the mechanism, which is statically attached to the other part of the limb, resulting in extension or retraction of the limb when the sun gear rotates. Both sides of this system are designed with extrusions which interfere with each other during rotation of the gear to prevent hyperextension of the joints. Like most patterns of armor used by the Nivelle cast, Obsidian-pattern utilizes a primary neural link to translate the pilot's inputs into the motion of the armor. All Nivelle have a pair of surgical implants, one into their cervical spine in their neck, and the other into the occipital bone in their head. The implant in their spine is designed to intercept neural inputs for muscle movements and translates them into the armor's equivalent motors. When the pilot is in their armor, drugs are inserted into the body to put them in a type of stasis, allowing them to survive even while the neural implants are being intercepted, even while the neural inputs are being intercepted by the armor. The implant into the back of the head returns sensory data and various other types of information from the armor back to the pilot, sending the information directly to their brain. Various types of information are relayed to the occipital lobe responsible for vision, allowing the pilot to intercept sensory information as if they were seeing it with their own eyes. Communication between armors is directed to the temporal lobe, and so on. The effect of this process results in the pilot perceiving the armor's sensory inputs as their own. Many types of inputs are filtered out or otherwise changed, such as damage to the armor being translated as a sense of location rather than a sense of pain, and less relevant information being filtered away from the pilot's senses to ensure they aren't being overloaded by non-essential information. For example, remaining nutritional reserves would not take immediate priority over the location of hostile forces. The pilot is held in a form of medically induced stasis during the operation of the armor. As a result, only a limited amount of padding is required. To minimize the effect of inertia or high-gravity maneuvers, the pilot and the control pod are subjected to gravitic fields to simulate normal gravity on the body of the pilot, ensuring normal blood flow and reducing the effect of landings or impacts upon the pilot. The pilot is also encased in a foam-like padding to minimize blisters, abrasions, sores, and chafing on the pilot's dermis, in addition to thermal insulation and another form of protection. Obsidian-pattern armor is fitted with an advanced life support system designed to keep the pilot alive while using the armor. Inside the lower back of the armor are multiple containers and pressurized cylinders designed to house various resources to maintain the pilot's health. While the pilot is largely in stasis during the operation of the armor, their consumption of resources is merely reduced, not eliminated. The armor has an internal compressed air tank able to store enough oxygen to last the pilot 1 Terran week. However, the pilot breathes in air from the atmosphere through a number of filters, only relying on this emergency oxygen tank should the outside air be unable to be filtered. When the air is able to safely be filtered, the armor will replenish the internal oxygen tank if it is at all depleted. The armor also carries an internal water storage tank, providing the pilot with 5 days' worth of water, but as the armor can recycle water through filtration with roughly 90% efficiency, this supply can realistically last the pilot 50 days instead of only 5 on a single tank. Nutrition is provided in the form of Kamzulu, an artificially created dehydrated food designed to have a very high nutritional value compared to its volume, with the armor's internal food container able to store 2 Terran months' worth of food. While advanced medical procedures cannot be performed while the pilot is inside of the armor, multiple drugs are stored within the armor, with the most important ones being itenzarine, a regenerative stimulant used in healing, Nevlontosine, a neural stimulant used to keep the pilot alert without sleep, and catravosin, used to prevent the pilot from being affected by the radiation emitted by the armor's systems. Obsidian-pattern armour is equipped with an extensive variety of weapons, divided into two categories: carried weapons and integrated weapons. The primary armament of Obsidian armour is a handheld weapon with significant flexibility as to what this is, primarily based on the battlefield role of the Novell piloting it. For example, a Novell from an Obsidian squad would operate a shadow rifle, shadow lance, or shadow suppressor of some pattern. All Novella are trained to use the shadow rifle, and the design of Obsidian armour reflects this, with the default configuration of both hardware and software being designed to accommodate such a weapon. Inside the front abdomen of the armour is a charging station with detachable batteries to power and feed the shadow rifle, with capacity for up to 8 standard-sized batteries, containing 12 batteries equivalent in spare charge, with armoured panels covering the bay when not in use. This means, in addition to the battery loaded and the 3 stored at the waist, the Novell has 24 batteries of ammunition before having to utilize other stowed reserves under a standard loadout. When not in use, a pair of back-mounted grav magnets allow the shadow rifle to be holstered on the back of the armor. Other weapons, such as the shadow autocannon, do not utilize this charging bay and instead rely on a back-mounted power reserve, or a melee weapon such as the shadow sword, not having a quick charging power reserve and hence not using this charging station either. The outside of the left thigh is hollowed out in order to make room for a pistol holster, where a shadow pistol will be stowed when not in use. The thigh panel is closed to cover this space, and this area is lined with a special electromagnetic mesh, designed to prevent any scanning systems from detecting the contents of it, allowing for the shadow pistol to be concealed carried. When needed, the panel will open, and the shadow pistol is moved to the draw position by a comparatively simplistic piston system. This hollow space can be modified to house other types of handguns, such as a storm pistol or antimatter pistol, as is the case for Videosira or Kaznika. Aside from the preloaded battery, up to 2 additional batteries are stowed inside this space, with the same piston mechanism to make them available. On either side of the charging bay, housed in the abdomen, are 2 linear cells to stow various types of throwable grenades, with capacity for up to 4 within each cell. These are propelled out of the cell by use of gravitics, and when not in use, a panel will close to cover them. Any type of standard grenade used by the Spectre Khanate can be stowed in these bays, including but not limited to antimatter grenades for anti-personnel purposes, xenon grenades for anti-vehicle, and hologram grenades, throwable decoys to imitate a pre-selected target. In the lower left arm is a grenade launcher, which collapses into the arm when not in use. This requires manual loading of one of the above types of grenades, but provides precise direct or indirect fire to a greater range than the grenade could normally be thrown. Other carried weapons and equipment, such as a combat knife or shadow bayonet, are to be attached to the Novell's primary weapon, are stowed in scabbards or simply by grab magnets. Multiple back-mounted grab magnets are included to allow the armor to carry a backpack, jump pack, or external battery for a heavier weapon. In addition to the weapons carried or stowed, Obsidian armor also has integral weapons, both offensive and defensive in purpose. 4 retractable blades made of Ventronium alloy are built into the wrists and feet, with the primary purpose of these being for hand-to-hand combat, but they are not limited to this role, able to be used in survival scenarios or for cutting through surfaces. These blades can be charged or heated for an electric or thermal effect, giving either increased lethality or improved tactical flexibility. The right wrist also has a collapsible gravitic-operated grappling system, able to fire a strong wire with a sharp and hardened head at very high velocity. This is able to puncture many materials, including armor at some distance, with surprising accuracy, but it is primarily used for utility such as grabbing distant objects, although it is not designed to support the full weight of the armor and carried equipment, making it less than desirable when used for climbing. The hands of the armor are equipped with an incredibly potent hacking system, able to bypass most security systems by a mere wave of the hand over the system. In addition, the fingertips of the hands have retractable nanoscale razors, primarily for the purpose of giving increased grip should climbing be required, but they are more than sharp enough to pierce flesh, which is commonly used in enhanced interrogation. They can also deliver a shot through these razors strong enough to disable electronics or stun targets in physical contact. The knuckles are covered with hardened materials, allowing the armor to force holes in walls or to enhance the effectiveness of a punch. The palms of the hands are equipped with bright lights, which, although not useful as the pilot has advanced sensors to detect stuff even in low light conditions, it is highly effective at blinding a foe in close proximity. Finally, both the hands and feet can emit powerful gravitic pulses capable of breaking bone if in physical contact, although a more inventive use of these pulses is to remove mud or snow from the feet after extended exposure to unfavorable terrain. Obsidian-pattern Armour features refined and improved sensor arrays. Like its predecessors, many of these systems are redundant, with a primary set installed in the head for a greater height and field of view, but a backup system is installed in the chest should the head become damaged. Some systems, such as pressure, touch, and temperature sensors, are scattered across all exposed surfaces of the armor. Every type of sensor used by the armor is not exposed, with all of it contained beneath the armor and able to operate through it. The closest system to normal vision is a sensor able to detect the full electromagnetic spectrum and convert it into visual data for the pilot to interpret. This is usually governed to only focus on the visible range of the spectrum in order to prevent information saturation, but can be adjusted to see in ultraviolet or infrared or outside of these ranges if needed. Note that Spavidaria have a greater visible electromagnetic spectrum compared to humans. In addition, an active molecular electronic targeting relay is included by emitting a translate beam of coded molecules and interpreting information based on how these molecules react to the surfaces they touch. Due to the nature of this technology, these beams can reflect off most surfaces, giving the armor a very powerful capability to see behind walls by bouncing these rays off surfaces. As the Spectre Khanate is seemingly the only civilization to utilize this type of detection system, counter-detection is not possible even when actively transmitting. Both active and passive sound-based sensors can be used, although these are occasionally disabled if the intensity of the sound would prevent them from being useful and would simply be distracting. Other systems such as subspace, gravitic, quantum, and temporal scanners are employed to detect disruptions to the multiple types of fields. The armor is also fitted with sensors to detect various airborne chemicals, functionally providing a sense of smell. A complete stealth suite is contained within the armor, the most prominent element of this being the spectrum refraction field, able to render the armor entirely invisible to the naked eye even when moving or shooting, by manipulating and redirecting beams of light to go around the armor instead of reflecting off of it, as well as obscuring the armor from other types of scanners, with only the most advanced detection systems able to identify or target the armor when the system is engaged. However, this system has one disadvantage. The temporal field projectors used to offer increased protection cannot be used at the same time due to the temporal fields affecting the refraction fields if both were enabled at once. To back up the refraction field when not in use, a passive ECM jamming array combined with emission reduction protocols serve to inhibit the ability of sensor systems to detect the armor or acquire it as a target even if detected. In addition, 4 launchable gravitic flares, 2 on the chest and 2 on the back, serve as a soft kill active protection system to interfere with the targeting of incoming guided missiles. Obsidian armor is not itself capable of flight, with the closest equivalent utilizing the feet-mounted gravitic pulses to increase the jump height of the armor. The Wraith sub-pattern of the armor is modified to be more adaptable with repulsor jetpacks, though. Underneath the arms, on the side of the torso, are a pair of strong gravitic nodes, which, when extended, significantly reduce the downward effect of gravity on the armor, allowing for a significantly slowed descent when deployed. These also act as stabilizers when firing, due to somewhat locking the armor in place when used. A common use for this is to allow the armor to jump and peek over a wall, and then using the nodes to slow the descent long enough to accurately fire a snapshot over the wall before dropping behind it. Obsidian armor is equipped with multiple communication arrays. Internal molecular, electronic, and subspace communication relays are installed in both the head and chest of the armor for the purposes of long-range and short-range communication between Vidaria. These have high encryption, but despite this are next to instantaneous and can operate in all conditions. These can transfer information to the pilot in one of various ways, such as projecting information onto their artificial field of vision, being interpreted as auditory information, or in high-priority cases, directly into their mind as if it were their own thoughts. A microphone is installed in the chin of the armor, with the primary purpose being interspecies communication, with a highly advanced translation and interpretation algorithms present to allow a conversation to occur without consequential delay. However, these see limited use due to Novella not being the ones to communicate with other species. Diplomatic roles usually fall to the Qatari caste. Should the armor be significantly damaged, Obsidian armor is fitted with a system to eject the pilot in the control pod a large distance away from the armor. While this ensures the immediate survival of the pilot, in practice, Novella rarely utilize this, as in the field of battle they are very unlikely to survive through the battle if outside of their armor, and if they remain in their control pod to await recovery, they have no means of defending themselves other than relying on the protective casing of the pod. Some Novella have had their ejection system removed entirely, be it for preparing death to the risk of capture, or to preserve their honor, or for many other reasons. The single most complex system possessed by Obsidian armor is its interphase relocation system, colloquially referred to as a shadow stepper. Much of the internal operation of this apparatus remains classified to all but the Zaster caste, but public records state it operates on a similar principle to ship-based interface drives, where the system forms an incision in real space to allow transportation between real space and low-stage interface. As distances within interface scale differently compared to real space, this allows the armor to travel through interphase and have covered a greater distance in real space. However, maintaining this incision is not possible beyond a few milliseconds. Despite this, opening the incision and merely flinching towards it translates to the armor being effectively teleported beyond the horizon relative to their initial real space position, and as such the calibration for this system has to be very precise, and is self-governed to prevent teleportation greater than the equivalence of a short dash. As this is immensely power-intensive, the relocation system cannot be used more than a few times in rapid succession before needing a recharge. However, its ability to let the Novell functionally teleport a short distance is undeniably a significant advantage in battle, able to move between cover without exposing themselves, gain a flanking angle very quickly, or simply to get out of close quarters. Obsidian-pattern armor is by all measures a significant improvement over Shade pattern and is a vital asset to the modern Novell caste. Its high reliability, survivability, endurance, lethality, mobility, and flexibility ensure the Spectre Khanate's ground forces are well equipped to maintain technological superiority over the battlefield. Thank you for listening to this report on the Obsidian pattern of armor used by the Spectre Khanate. I hope that you found this as interesting to listen to as I did to write. Have a good day. And as always, happy crusading.